that is different things, but it's broken out behind.
The reason I ask that is you've given us a budget request, and you've indicated in your presentation that you're going to come back to us in January to talk about 2% cut budget and what the impact that $1 million plus would be. But we don't have what we've asked for from everyone, which is a level service budget. Now, I think we're going to have to compute that on our own unless you want to give us some assistance in telling us what you think that level service budget is. In the past, we've identified that as carrying forward your existing staff with wage and salary increases, and perhaps adding in a sped cost, which is essentially a bill. You've got to spend that money in order to meet the federal and state standards. And the two of those combined, added to your budget from a year ago, could realistically be called your level service budget. If you've got that much money, you could provide the same service in the coming year as you have in the past year. I think it would be good for you to get back to us with your opinion on that, whether that's what you think it ought to be, because I think otherwise we're going to have to make an assumption on our own.
Well, if you're talking contracts too, I mean, the special ed transportation is a contractual issue. I mean, the prices are set for what they are. I think you can make the argument.
Well, that's why I included the sped in it.
Yeah. Oh, you're including the sped,
including the sped plus,
transportation.
plus contractual obligations.
Bill,
We'll take a look.
would you consider the advancement budget to be level service or not?
No, I mean, I don't consider it to be level service. I mean, it's an additional service. It's an enhancement to service. It's
One that was
probably very
provided
much
last
needed.
year.
I think that every department in town, based upon the look that we've had of the budget so far, are asking for things that are needed and that we ought to do. But it's hard to identify which of those things are level service and which aren't, so.
I can see the argument being made that that service was provided last year, so it would be level to provide it again.
What service was provided last
The
year?
advancement service, it's a program.
No, a different advancement service was provided last year.
So Phil, what would be your definition of level service?
The money to provide the same level of service that you had a year ago. That would mean you probably would need the same staff. You cut staff, you're not likely to be able to afford the same level of service. And you need to provide a certain level of sped based upon the law. That's essentially a bill that someone has handed you, and you have to adhere to. And so what you were able to afford last year, plus their increases in salary and plus the sped increases, would seem to be a good approximation for your level service. But maybe I'm missing something, and that's why I bring it up.
Well,
And to Lee Michael's question, so that would include the advancement services we provided last year, but not the
Yes.
services we're requesting this year.
Right.
Well, basically, we asked the other departments in town for three budgets. Pretty much what they wanted and felt they needed to provide the service they should to the town. And then another, and I don't care what you call it, and then another budget which was maintaining the staffing level that they had and maintaining contracts that they were engaged in, and then asking them for a level dollar on their other general expenses that were not part of any contract. Okay, and then beyond, and then from that number, we asked them, okay, if we had to take 2% out of that. With the schools, it's difficult to compare because you give us a ton of information and we don't want to. We have the top number is fine, but if we want to find the middle and the bottom number on an equal footing with the other departments in town, we could use a little more information, and I can pursue that with Glenn probably.
Well, I mean, if you go back to the slide a couple ones ago here, to follow up on what Phil is saying, if you're saying that the advancement isn't part of level service, certainly you would probably be saying backing the 500,000 out would still be there because that was one-time money to begin with. The 1.3 million is there, you're saying, because it's wage agreements. I think we'll have a chat about the need for some of these special educators, especially the one at the high school, which I think is more mandated than anything else because of our enrollment. So, I mean, there's an argument to be made there. You're going to back out the maintenance salaries to consolidate facilities because obviously they're not here anymore. So, I mean, you would definitely do that. Sped tuition and buses. So I think that the major question really is like a couple $100,000 on the bottom. You know, if you're saying that we level dollar your utilities, then yeah, I'd say you're taking the 100,000 out. We'll talk about the other costs in a minute. But a lot of this stuff, I think, probably does fall into the level service world. At least, you know, the
Except that.
Well, it's what you need. It's what you need.
If it's the level of service we were providing last year, then I don't agree that $500,000 is out. I think it's in.
You mean
Well-
the second item?
Yes.
Yeah.
all right, just to finish up, there's only like
I guess I missed that when you presented. The entire amount of that $500,000 is you're backing out the advancement budget? you
no,
got a
that's
year
the
ago?
one-time funds
No,
from
the
last year.
one-time
Remember,
funds.
last year, $500 million of our budget was funded with one-time funds.
What were those?
Well,
There was
100,000
was one
was
particular sped
was
placement.
that item they mentioned for the sped transportation. And that's why I was asking if the
70,000.
other 400,000 was detailed, but a lot of it was the initial investment for the advancement budget programs. So,
So
And some of it was,
the science curriculum, the science curriculum, you buy it one time.
Okay,
It's 10 to
okay.
12 years. The professional development I started with that goes with it.
Yeah.
We're not going to have to do that PD ever again. We'll have teachers that can train new teachers. So we itemized everything. That would be a one-time cost.
And last year, there was also $60,000 in technology equipment for park that was identified as it wasn't in the advancement budget, it was in the regular budget, but was identified as a one-time fund. That's been backed out of our technology budget when you go to the detail on that.
I have a question. When you talked about the 2% less, do you go 2% under the same number dollar, or do you go 2% below the maintaining the same level of service?
we went 2% under maintaining the same level of service. Now, everybody in town has a different definition on what level service is.
And I heard it from you,
okay?
Ted. And I wrote it down.
And
Vice versa, yeah.
And we've been using it in two different
Thank
ways
you.
tonight. But basically, we've been looking for what would it cost to bring your best product forward to serve the town? What would it cost to maintain what you've been doing? And then, okay, once we have that number, if that has to be trimmed due to the fiscal realities of available revenue, the initial estimate, which may or may not hold up, it was about 2%. So that's why we asked for the 2%, and that's why we are searching for your middle number to deduct 2% from.
And I think that we have to go back to that SPED one more time. For people who have been involved in the schools, when you had the out-of-district placements at 92, that was always a volatile number in out-of-district placements and transportation, but that's so controlled now, bringing it down to 40, a number within the 40s, 47, 45, that we're able to control for that. That's been a huge impact. That again, we've assumed those teachers and creating those classrooms, but if that was an out-of-district placement, that would be in this number that you're asking for, and it would be a volatile number.
No, I think bringing all those services in town has really helped stabilize that for you and for the town.
School budget.
And, yeah, no, otherwise that would be blowing the budget totally right there.
Just to finish off that last number on the chart, the 95,000, I've broken it down here by the 7 major categories. Some are up, some are down. The backup for this is all in the book, rather than in the PowerPoint. The book is broken out by the 7 DESI categories: policy and administration, instructional leadership, instruction, instructional services, special ed, technology, and facilities. In there, we've broken it down, again, item by item within the subcategories that are on the long spreadsheet that you have of the budget, to try to identify the various different changes in there. We've given you all of our staff to see how the salaries roll up, to see where we got the salary numbers, and we tried to explain the non-salary numbers as best we can, the justification for where we got them and what we're using for them. And these are, the last bit is more or less little changes in here. The one that's up there, technology costs, we're filling in some pieces that we're missing, that helping us get park ready and so forth, but also equalizing some equipment across the schools where, there are 3 classrooms here that are missing a smart board, or there's, it's filling in some things, and there is an itemized list of that in the technology section, so you can go back and see what that is. So we've tried to break it out and make it as evident as possible what kind of numbers we're using. The one caveat I always say about a school budget is they're volatile between, when you look at our special education assistants, our aides, that number changed yesterday. It will probably change again tomorrow or, within 2 weeks. As students need different things, as individual ed plans are rewritten, and they're rewritten every day during the year because they're once a year and they're staggered across the year, those needs change. So, in fact, when I did an estimate of what the special ed aides were in September, it turns out that I needed 3 more aides or 4 more aides when I ran the estimate 2 weeks ago, because we had to hire them in the interim. So some of these are fluid, and we will be making adjustments because we have to make adjustments. I can't tell you I won't need another teacher this year. We might. We have unpredictable costs like for substitute teachers. We've, worked substitute teachers on a 3-year average of them. But some of you who have children of the middle school age might remember 2 years ago where I think we had 21 pregnancies, and that's a lot of substitute teachers. So it happens, and sometimes you actually hire a teacher to cover this one while she's out, and then to jump over to this one who's going out 3 days later, and hire a teacher for the year instead of substitutes for the year. And so it's a very fluid number. So all of these numbers are a snapshot in time, especially on the salary, on the staffing. And they will move, I promise, because they always do. So, I mean, they are our best estimate of where we are and what we need and what we're working on. But if you come back to me next year and say, you said you needed, 67 special education aides, and all of a sudden I see you have 72 in there, I'll say, yeah, I suppose there are. It could happen, and almost certainly will, in one form, one way or another. So that's my caveat.
So, sorry, go ahead,
Sorry,
Betty.
can I ask about FTEs, how many staff in the system? I did look a lot at your, I like the enrollment projections, that was really interesting to watch, and it seems like the enrollment's pretty strong. But I know part of it may be program-based, but have the FTEs stayed about the same? Have they changed? Because, every year you see in the paper the group photo of the new hires, but I'm wondering always at the time is how many folks left, how many people retired, and how many of these are new folks that are replacing people who left, or new hires because of expanding population? I know that's a huge question, but.
Yeah, it does move around, especially in the aid world. I mean, when you add up all the FTEs and you say there are so many FTEs in the schools, that really is a rather bogus number, because an FTE for a teacher is different from an FTE for an aide, is different from an FTE for a custodian, and that you really have to break them down by categories. They don't, my estimation is our number of teachers hasn't varied greatly. Our special education teachers have gone up, I'll say that. Our regular education teachers have remained reasonably constant, although this year we had an influx of kindergartners and first graders. We added 2 kindergartens and a first grade at the beginning of this year for enrollment. So, it doesn't vary wildly in the regular ed world. The special ed world it generally keeps going up. I think you'll find the support staff has been reasonably constant, even though we added a data specialist and the parent outreach person this year. Our support staff has been thin for a number of years because we've always prioritized people in the classroom. And so those are positions that have been cut over the years. And it is starting to stress a little bit with the level of support staff. You know, who's minding the building when the elementary school secretary is out to lunch? It's a good question. There isn't a spare secretary in the building to mind it. Someone has to be doing that, you know, so, and you don't leave the office unattended with our, you know, secure entry buildings and so forth. You have to have someone there. I mean, so and custodians, you go back to 10 or 15 years, our custodial staff is well down from what it used to be. We managed that somewhat because of the new schools, but the new schools are a lot bigger. And custodial staff is really stretched to clean the square footage that they have with the folks they have. But it's hard to assign just a strict number to it and say, oh yeah, there are 7 more bodies than there were last year. But without saying where those bodies are, it's a fairly meaningless statistic.
So I want to say just a couple things. You mentioned this budget is a snapshot in time, and certainly when we made the 2% cut estimate, that was a snapshot in time. And one of the reasons it may be wrong is because this budget came in substantially less than I had predicted. And
We'll add to it if you like.
Thank you. So that was great. I mean, I haven't looked at each page, but it looks like a budget of great thought and restraint. And, you know, in general, you know, and I think probably, you know, Milton schools, you know, really punch above their weight, along with, you know, the help they get with the MFE and the Copeland Foundation and some of the school committee's smart strategies on developing our own capacity for SPED and other things like that. But all that being said, we still have fiscal realities to deal with, and we'll see where they take us. As Leroy wisely told me last year, hey, it's a process. We'll get there. And part of that process will be, I'm sure, a meeting on the subcommittee level with Paul, and I would encourage anybody on the Warrant Committee to send their questions for the schools through Paul, and I'm sure we'll see each other in January. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add or any other questions for tonight, but we will certainly follow up the subcommittee level, and then I imagine once more altogether, if that's amenable, and we'll work out the details.
And we'll funnel these questions to Paul, and any question that you have, you just funnel to us.
At the end of this, I did mention, and there's like 2 more slides of the PowerPoint that you have in your folders.
Oh, bring them along.
No,
Bring them on.
they were just summaries. There's
Okay.
a picture of what the budget looks like. And that's the quick summary page of the ask for 1.7. But what I will say is, on this one, this is a one we had last year. I'm still working on exactly what the number of one-time funds could be realistically in this budget. We've certainly identified $283,000 in the advancement budget as one time, and I've identified a few other things as one time, but I'm still working on that. We just you know, got this together in this form 3 days ago, so that's a piece I'm not quite there yet on. So
Well, we have things we're working on too.
Yeah.
So,
we'll get them to you.
and
It's 47 this year, I think they said.
talk about, oh, sorry, Steve,
This is more a comment overall than about
please.
the school department, and it's some points I've made before, but The school department budget,
Guys, can we listen to, guys, you're on mic, you're on TV. Can we listen to
the
Steve,
school
please?
department budget is made up of 5 sub-budgets, 1 to each school, and
6.
6. Sorry. But the school committee and their budgeting process has narrowed down all of the requests from those 6 into 1. Not everybody got what they wanted. So in the same way, when we're dealing with the selectmen's budgets and the budgets that are under their control, something akin to this where they come in to us with a presentation where they've already had their discussions with the department heads about what can and cannot be done is really something that I would like to see happen.
So noted, we will do that. Or we think we will.
So, Steve, what, I wasn't quite clear on what you were asking for.
You're a good model.
I'm comparing the model that's used here to the model that we get for the other departments where each of the individual departments that's seated beneath the selectmen just come in and say, we'd like everything on this list. And the selectmen may or may not have vetted all of that, A, and B, they can give to us some more direction on, we think that this department deserves more additional assistance than another one does in any given year, rather than this unelected board just making those arbitrary decisions. The policy people who are elected to do so would do so and bring us a budget accordingly, or a budget recommendation.
Well, unless we can offer the school more money than they asked for, their preferences, the preferences of the school committee, I think, will manifest themselves in the prioritized lists of cuts that they will have to give us in order to, or tell us about in order to meet a target budget number. So I think, does that somewhat satisfy what you're looking for?
I'm not looking for anything more on the school
Right.
budget. I'm looking for a similar model to come in from the select departments, where there's been a funneling process that brings us a narrow group of vetted proposals for additional services or for cuts or whatever there's going to be, where they've had their say.
Well, we will work on that. And we can probably get that done without Glenn showing them how, but we'll, I take your point, Steve. It's nice to have that prioritized list of cuts if they are necessary. Sure. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and look forward to seeing you again, and happy holidays.
Thank you.
And I will take a motion.
Thank you all.
They sent me in leadership group with the list
Oh,
of
we
nine.
adjourned, but thank you all for your attention.